All right, I want to call the December 15th Sanitary District meeting to order. Let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of
I'm
the
standing.
United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under
The nation, and God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Craig, can we get a roll call?
Yep. Mr. Gambala,
Present.
Ms. Kroll,
Here.
Mr. Setlak,
Here.
Ms. Sims-Smearcheck,
Here.
and Mr. Kmetz.
Here.
Craig Phillips, Town Manager, is present. Wayne Pondinas?
Present.
Okay, so you have 5 members present.
Thank you. Item number 4, approval of the minutes. The minutes have not been written up, so we will table this to the next meeting. Do we need a motion for that?
You should probably have a motion to defer, yes.
Yes, can I get a motion to defer the approval of the October 20th and November 17th, 2020 meeting minutes until our next scheduled meeting?
So moved.
Second.
With Ken out, we need to do a roll call vote.
Yeah,
right?
let me catch up here, sorry. It was, that was Sims-Smearcheck on the motion and Setlak on the second, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Mr. Gambala,
Yes.
Ms. Kroll,
Yes.
Mr. Setlak,
Yes.
Ms. Sims-Smearcheck,
Yes.
Mr. Kmetz.
Yes. Motion passes. Number 5, new business, the SCADA system proposal update.
I would just ask you to defer that to the next meeting, transpired in the Waterworks meeting,
Okay.
Unless they have any specific questions they would like to ask.
if they want.
Yeah. There's one, it's been a recurring thing, which we brought up our last meeting, but how's it going to be paid for?
It's my understanding that the first half, sorry? Oh. It's my understanding that I think about 50% of it would be paid for out of Waterworks district funds, and the other 50% would be out of sanitary district funds. And it's also my understanding that it would be necessary to consider, most likely consider a utility bond for a portion of that, whether that comes from the water department, or I'm sorry, the water works utility or the sanitary district would remain to be seen at this point.
Craig, I thought at the last meeting, didn't we mention to have the financial consultants?
We are planning on having them
available?
come to see you guys in the January meeting.
Okay. I was thinking they'd be here for this one.
Just given the circumstances, it wasn't available at this meeting, so we'll plan on having them available for your January meeting, and they can give you an update on the status of the finances.
Okay. Any other questions?
Is there anyone from Austin here?
They were here earlier.
Oh, okay. So they left us?
They left, yeah.
As I usually do, but I toss in my 2 cents, maybe a nickel. But anyway, on this, the finances, I look at it, we have kind of a fiduciary responsibility that if we're going ahead to try and spend some money, that money actually exists and is coming. And that's why I keep on going on that. And it seems like it's getting to be like pulling teeth about finding out where it's coming from. Getting tons of technical details about the system, which is fine, but I'm not technically really into that stuff. And in terms of the bids, what I would have liked to have seen, which is why I sent my response to you, which I think generated and Rod's, but we got some of the other ones. Just getting a recommendation of this one, and from my perspective, it's like, wow, you guys all decided on the highest priced one. And had no idea why. And more so, it's like, well, you liked it. Well, that's kind of understood. But then why didn't you like the others? And I got no impression about a whole lot of that. Jason helped a
I
little
do
bit.
think
Well,
Jason
and
did
that we
provide a lot of.
we rely heavily on Jason for that background, so that information he provided you is a lot of that background.
But I had to ask for it. It didn't just come.
You had to ask
And an
for the information
evaluation.
from Jason?
I asked you in the email.
Well, no, the information from Jason was sent separately to that. So anyway, point being.
Well, if I went and got my email, it said, how did you arrive at that decision? And he said, well, you just did. And I'd like to see something about more like, where are the
That's
points going to the proposal?
Not what I said, but,
But how did they relate to the proposal? You're asking for certain things, and we got one, we like this one. Well, what did the others relate to? How did they not meet it?
okay, and I
And
thought
I
the
could see some
information-
objectivity there about, rather than just, well, we felt.
No, the information provided from Jason answers a lot of that and provides a lot of that background for you. And it is highly technical, so that's why the information from the IT.
The dollars
director-
are not technical, but there are some things should be, this one covered it, there's some things which made it look like some of those proposals would be considered like non-responsive, because they didn't address the
Right.
software.
The biggest concern we had was, so with a couple of the proposals was that we
Well, I
felt
don't wanna
that, well,
talk
you're
about it
asking
now.
the question, so I'm telling you, the biggest concern we had was a couple of them appear to be a bit too proprietary for our liking. That's the biggest concern we have with those. And that was mentioned in Jason's response.
And Craig, right now, that's what we're trying to get away from.
Correct.
Our current system is proprietary.
Correct.
And it's causing us to bring consultants in from
Right.
Minnesota or I believe it was Pennsylvania.
Yes.
It's silly me, though, I think if you sent out a proposal, that if you're rejecting and going with these, you would address why this one or that one did not go along with that proposal.
And I guess I don't want to belabor this, but I think Jason's response,
Didn't
Based
relate
on-
it back to the proposal.
I'm sorry?
He didn't relate it back to the proposal. Not directly.
Okay, I believe he did, but what we can do is, I guess we can clarify that further. I thought
No, I'm
that
just saying-
Jason's response
I'm
was
just
very
saying we could
specific to
avoid
each
all this
proposal.
if we would have had more information ahead of time. We
I-
got a thing said, here's this is what we decided, we'd like you to accept it and go along with it. It's like, well, how'd you get there?
We also provided you with the majority of the background is from what Jason sent you.
That was
He told me
after,
he was
there was some
sending that
question
to
about
you.
it, though. That
I'm
was
sorry?
after a question about it.
I'm sorry?
That was after a question about it.
I don't know. Jason said that he was sending you the proposal.
Well, next time I'll produce the copies of
And
the
I said-
emails and the dates about when things were sent, when I responded back to yours, and what we got back in response.
Okay, I'm not sure, I'm not sure why we're going circular on this. The bottom line is that we responded to the details that you're looking for in the form of Jason's response to the 4 proposals.
Well, you're missing what I'm saying, but that's okay. I'm just saying, if I don't know where the money's coming from, I don't see how I can say yes to go ahead with it, regardless of which one is best or not.
Okay, that's a
Craig,
good
If I
point.
can interject something, in the future, if we have any other big projects like this that are coming before this board, I sincerely hope not, because we're running on fishes and loaves here. The people that are gonna be impacted by these implementation of these systems, we can vote on anything we want up here. We have all these proposals, but at 2 in the morning, on July 4th, if a lift station goes down, they're not calling us. They're calling Public Works, they're calling somebody else. The people that are gonna be living and dying by this system, if they make these recommendations, we need to hear that. We need to know that they recommend this. And Jason, with his IT experience, if it's a better system, regardless of the RFP and who checked what box, these are the people that are gonna be living and dying by the system. We can vote on whatever we want because of finances or whatever, but that's not fair to the taxpayers or the people that
That's-
work for the town.
Understood, and that's why we had
So-
Jason and Bob Valois here, because they're the ones who
That's
deal
so-
with the system directly.
But going
Well,
forward, if there's something big like this, maybe it's an
I know.
automatic to give us
Pat-
that
Patty?
input as well written as it was. You know, the
Patty,
Jason gave us.
unfortunately, when having a meeting, like, we couldn't advertise, so we only had certain people at it, only one person from the water board. There was a lot of discussion on the proposals, which you can't put all down on paper, and it should be, and you should hear all the answers, but just to let you know that, Bob Elias and Bob Davis and who know the system and have to live with it as you're talking about at 2:00 in the morning, as far as the hardware and nuts and bolts of it, went through the proposals thoroughly, and they, and again, their recommendations were a certain direction, and then on the technical part of the communication side, Jason's was the same way. Unfortunately, it's a difficult. The SCADA is kind of difficult to understand the whole thing, and one of the issues that came up was that we were looking for someone that's going to have experience, a track record, close to talk to. You don't have to fly somebody in from New Jersey, and thorough enough that they were going to do a thorough enough job with everything that there couldn't be any finger pointing to any of the existing equipment we have that they didn't change. They accepted it to hold the cost down, and then we're stuck in the middle between the two. And I'm not making any. I'm not trying to sway it one way or the other. I'm just saying that those were some of the issues that came up during the kick-around meeting between Public Works people and Jason and the town engineer. And I understand what you're coming from. If you can't hear those answers and questions at the meeting, it's difficult to get that information on what happened, what they said to the rest of the board members. So, as I said in the waterworks meeting, everybody, my point is that everybody on the board needs to be comfortable with what direction they need to go to. The difficult part is getting everybody the answers that they need. So with that said, that's where some of this came from. From the waterworks people that know what we have and what they're going to have to use and deal with. So just to answer that question or what the comment you were making, Patty, I didn't mean to elaborate on that, but just to tell you that it was discussed. So
We look forward to a study session or a workshop to get all these details resolved on the proposal side, and then we also look forward to a meeting with our financial advisors to make sure that we have the proper funding to move forward. So,
In your assessment, Jason, thank you for that. It was
Thank you.
it was thorough. It was honest. It did cover some things that they couldn't provide or didn't provide. So it looks like it was you and were you in it with Bob trying to put together both sides of it from the IT and the operational standpoint. So I think it did address some of the issues of why the good parts of each system and the negatives of each system as well. Some of those we could probably go into a little more in-depth to ask about. I know what's the WonderWorks software that we use? Is there a cost to that?
The Wonderware software is the human-machine interface. It's basically the graphical interface to how to operate the valves and everything. It displays the levels of the water and sewage and all that. That is currently on a year-to-year technical support contract, so we already own the license. That's why we want to continue to reuse it. Wonderware is the premier company when it comes to HMI software. So we figured since we already own it, our operator is already familiar with how to use it, we might as well stick with what we know and save a little bit of money instead of choosing a different software package, which we'll have to get new licenses for and new training.
Recurring maintenance costs on that as well.
Correct.
Was it that, there are some of these, I don't know if it was one or two, but mentioned being cloud-based. Did that impact any of your decision?
The cloud, if it would have worked for us, I would have recommended it. Unfortunately, the proprietary nature of the cloud is what allowed me to basically reject those two proposals, because we're looking for an open system, something that can interface with just about any other hardware component. So if we stuck with Flight Cloud, for example, it looks to me like all future lift stations, all future wells will have to have the Flight Cloud hardware inside it in order to integrate into their cloud solution. So that's why I rejected those two proposals. We're trying to avoid the proprietary nature of hardware and software.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Okay, so I'd like to entertain a motion to table the SCADA system proposal update until we have either a study session or a separate meeting.
Also move.
I will second.
Roll call, vote.
That was Kroll on the second.
Uh,
Or no, Sims, I'm sorry, it was Sim Smearcheck. When I can't see your mouth moving, it's hard, I'm sorry.
I hate these masks. I
Okay.
can't hear anybody. It's like-
Mr. Gambala,
Yes.
Ms. Kroll,
yes.
Mr. Setlag,
Yes?
Ms. Sim Smearcheck,
Yes.
Mr. Kmetz.
Yes. Okay, motion passes. Next new business, the US 41 Utility Relocation Project Update, change order number 2.
We have our project manager from Haas and Associates online that's prepared to go over the update on that project and to go over change order, the request for change order number 2. Okay. Matt Miniel.
Hello, everybody.
Hi, Matt.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Matt Mignon, Haas and Associates. I'm the project manager over this job. Happy holidays, everybody. Currently, right now, you have the change order number 2. I'm not sure if it's directly in front of you, but it was sent out last week with the cover letter and the explanation for those costs. This work is for the force main lowering on the west side of US 41 near lift station number 1 heading north. We have a cost provided by Grimmer to the contract for $101,961. When you view the change order, you'll see there's an individual description of the 10 change order line items that have been added to the contract with a description of explaining, basically just a little synopsis of what each item is and why it's required. Based on this work being added, the contractor has requested an additional 21 days to be added to the contract, and we agree with that. We feel that that's adequate. And like I said, the total cost is $101,961. Original contract cost for this job was bid at $333,699. Prior change orders approved, change order number 1, you guys had already approved for $29,852. With this change order number 2 for the force main lowering work at $101,961 would bring our total revised contract cost to $465,512 even. There was also an attachment that I provided with it that builds from the last change order. It's kind of probably hard to see. It was the attachment, but it shows change order 1 items and then change order number 2 items and separates them to make that clear for you. And then the last column will show the total revised bid quantities for all items, including change order number 1 and change order number 2. And along with this was the plans were provided for the drawings. Outside of that, the current status of the project is we are on hold with Grimmer starting this work until after the new year. They had a crew available that was going to be able to start this force main lowering work, but I was not able to give them to go ahead on this prior to this meeting, so I had to tell them to hold off on that. So pending this approval, they'll be able to start this work, but as of right now, Grimmer is not planning to start any of the work on this project until after the new year now.
Okay, so that includes on the east side? That's put off? too?
Yes. Yeah, east side and the west side, yes, correct.
Okay, and then,
Do you guys have any questions regarding the change order that was presented to you and the force main cost? I went through that kind of.
So this project increased 40%.
Yeah, let me see my calculator.
Yeah, roughly. This was the item that we thought was going to cost about $90,000 when it was initially brought to our attention a few months ago.
Correct. And Grimmer provided us an initial cost of around $107,000 initially. And Jim Maurer at our office worked with their engineer, John Dulacek, that provided the cost to bring that cost down to the $101,961 that we presented today. And so, yeah, initially we thought it was going to be around $90,000, but there were some additional costs in there for bonds and insurance. That was not included, obviously, with the original bid. So there was some additional cost in there, I believe, for that probably wasn't accounted for initially when Jim did his cost estimate.
So because I'm new, I have a couple questions.
Okay.
So why wasn't this work anticipated in the original contract? This is a lot of money for a change order.
This was, my understanding, is that this work was brought to our attention by NDOT with the road widening project for the center turn lane. When they did their design work on the west side there, where this force main lowering in question that we're talking about now came about, there was a air release valve that was brought to our attention that was going to be out of the ground. And in doing so, that's where we realized that this segment of the force main, the sanitary force main, would need to be lowered. I was not directly involved with the review of any of NDOT's planning with respect to the center turn lane being added and their ditch improvements. To my knowledge, this was brought to my attention after the fact of my job being bid, and then it was added to this project.
So why didn't they include you on that?
On the NDOT work,
Yes.
well, I don't have direct, what's the word I'm looking for? I wasn't directly involved with that project with the town, with whatever transpired with the transmittals between the town and with our office. I'm unaware. I would have to speak with Ken Kraus at our office to clarify that further, because to my knowledge, like I said, I was put over this project, and then the force main lowering on the west side was brought to my attention, and then it was added to my project. So I was kind of dumped on my project, for lack of better expression, I guess.
Okay.
There were a number of coordination issues between the town, our representatives, and NDOT that we've addressed in previous meetings, and a lot of questions have been raised as to, why didn't we know? Because we had change orders in different aspects of this project already. And we spent quite a bit of time, and I think different representatives from Haas and Associates had previously explained to us basically that NDOT did not keep us in the loop when they made design decisions. We were given a certain set of plans and then found out after the fact that they had made changes to those plans without notifying us. We became aware of the fact that had happened was when we were notified that we had to relocate a main on the east side of the highway, and then that kind of got this this whole conversation going, and we found out that there were issues with the coordination on this project. Haas and Associates basically was not given, correct and current information on the status of the project when we let the project. We found out about these problems and these changes after we let the project for bid. And it's, at this point, we are supposed to be scheduling a phone conversation with our attorney to see if there's any sort of recourse with regard to any of this, because it clearly looks like NDOT has dropped the ball here, as we discussed before, in terms of their communication. The company that they hired as their project manager didn't communicate with our project management company, which is Haas and Associates, properly, and that's led to these issues, because we first found out about the issues on the east side of the roadway, as you guys recall from previous meetings, and then when we were going through the discussions of how did we get to that point with those meetings, we found out, oh, by the way, there's this additional problem, and at that time it was estimated to be about $90,000. And here we are with the actual numbers based on more detailed information that's been presented to us by the project managers, our project managers in this case, after their coordination. And I should also state, on Matt's behalf, that Matt and others at Haas and Associates have tried to jump through some hoops to figure out if there were any other possible alternatives than lowering this force main, that wouldn't cost as much as this. And we exhausted those opportunities. As we previously discussed in other meetings, we said we would look into that, and they have. And unfortunately, this is where we're at with this, this is NDOT's right away. They can tell us to move something. And here we are, and we're on the hook for moving it because NDOT told us to, because our utility is located within their right of way.
I'd also like to add that initially we thought that we'd be able to lower this force main and use the pressure rated pipe, and because of NDOT's design and the proximity of our sanitary force main, there is a segment of the force main that is 135 lineal feet that is required to be ductile iron pipe because we don't have the proper coverage. And so we have to have the more rigid pipe in order to be able to do that. And so that's part of that, along with additional bonds and insurance for the work that were not factored in to Grimmer's original bid, is what I believe has offset that cost from where we thought it would be $90,000 to the $101 you're being presented today.
So that's another one of my questions for item 39. Is that ductile iron pipe more expensive?
Yes, correct.
Okay, and I'm sorry, I couldn't hear, what did you say was the reason why we had to use that?
You have to have specific pipe coverage over the top of the pipe, buried depth. And so there was this segment of 135 feet, we're not able to maintain the proper, what we like to have is 4 to 5 feet of cover. And so through this area, from my understanding, talking to Jim Maurer, the engineer on our company that did this work and quantified these, is that we don't have the proper cover there. It's less than the 4 feet. And so because of that, we have to go with the more rigid pipe, which is the ductile iron. And the ductile iron is more cost.
Less coverage, stronger pipe, right?
Correct. Correct.
And when you're talking about coverage, you're talking about the actual soil.
Yes, the soil that goes backfilled over the top of the pipe once it's in the ground. So the C900 pipe, that's for 363 lineal feet, we're able to maintain that 4 foot of cover over the top of the pipe once it's installed. That other segment, I believe it's like, we're at like 3 feet or 2 feet. And so that's where Jim Maurer came up with the recommendation to have to use the ductile iron pipe for that segment of 135 lineal feet total.
So I guess to put it succinctly, our engineers designed this project based on drawings that we were given by NDOT at that time prior to our letting the project for bid. After that, we were notified of changes that NDOT made to the design of their project that affected our project, and because our project is located within their right-of-way, our utility is located within their right-of-way, they can say, you're required to move it. And they have in now three instances, two on the east side and one on the west side of the roadway in this area, in this general vicinity. And so unfortunately, that's kind of, that's where we're at this point.
So how do we prevent that from happening in the future?
Trying to communicate
Yeah.
with NDOT, I suppose that they shouldn't do this again, but like I said, we're supposed to have a conversation with our attorney and Haas and Associates and town representatives to, discuss whether or not we have any recourse in this situation, given the poor communication that we experienced. We've talked about
Yeah,
that in
well-
previous meetings, and
Just,
so it's our intention to
We're-
follow
we're
through with
having
that
this-
and see
yeah.
if there is any recourse, but, aside from that, unfortunately, like I said, it's NDOT's right of way, and they can tell us to move something if they decide to do a project. So they could decide to do a project in a different location along their right of way, and our utility may be in the way, and they can just come along and say, you have to move it at your cost. Too bad, you have to move it at your cost, and it could happen anytime. It just so happens that in this case, it's affiliated with the general location of a project that we were already doing. So no matter what,
Yeah,
if NDOT was doing this project and our utilities were in the way, and they came along and said, you need to move your utility because it's in the way of our project, because it's located within their right-of-way, they have the right to do that.
Correct.
The water district has the same issue going on right now.
Correct, we're dealing with
this
this water,
information, the
water utility
sanitary
is
board
dealing
on
with
the
that
east
same
side.
issue.
They are widening the road based on a set of plans that were given
Correct.
to us, and they're saying you got to move your water line by March 1st or April 1st, is it? Which is
April
quite a
1st, March
project.
1st.
And we don't have the easement acquired. We're going through wetlands, poor soils, and all of this has to be done by April 1st because they put the gun to the Waterworks Department head and say this has to be done. So it's the same issue on the other side of the road.
Wayne and
And Hans has to deal with trying to make sure that they're giving them the latest plans for right of way. And they're trying very hard to try and keep the costs down with rerouting that to get around the wetlands, based on recommendations from Public Works also to maintain it. It's the same issue on the other side of the road that we're having with the IDOT, and
Yeah,
what it is what it is. They're the state. We're St. John.
so yeah, we're having the same exact issue with them in the water utility side on the east side of the road, and Bob Valois and Wayne and I and Ken Gambala have been involved in various conversations about how we're going to remedy that situation. And that's also a very costly situation that unfortunately, because our utility is located in their right of way, we're forced to move. And they've given us until March or April, I can't remember the exact date, to move it.
Okay, so are there any other change orders that are anticipated now until April 1st or March 1st,
I would have to
whatever?
defer to Matt on that one.
Currently, right now, and through doing all this, when this kind of got dumped onto the project, we started looking at different ways that we could try to use our value engineering skills to reduce cost. And so we are currently working on a third change order with Parsons and NDOT on the east side of the road at the north end to modify the project scope and adjust the amount of sewer that we're going to put into the ground to try and offset some of this cost. And we're currently working on that with NDOT and Parsons right now. I have a preliminary plan that I have provided to Grimmer and that I'm having them currently reviewing right now. There's a 24-inch RCP storm pipe that is in conflict with the tie-in point of our design. The sanitary sewer from McDonald's heading south, it jogs east to west in the right of way. And those two, the storm and the sanitary cross each other twice. And so the problem with it is when this project originally bid, we had an alignment set that was good to go. And again, NDOT not coordinating their utility coordination with the town and us, we were left out of the loop. Those poles went in and it caused us to have to redesign it. And now there's a 24-inch culvert pipe, well, not culvert, storm pipe that basically is jogging in and out to where we show our sanitary alignment. And so I've tried to make adjustments to bypass that and to shorten the amount of work on the north end of our original project scope. I'm probably about 80% of the way there. It's going to be a $0 change order, all said and done. And with the hopes that by reducing it, there might be a little bit of savings to offset this force main lowering. But the force main lowering was a unforeseen condition on our behalf because we were left out of the loop on that. And so we are working, like I said, on another change order to reduce the amount of work on the north end to avoid a 24-inch storm pipe. And that would be the only thing that I would see forthcoming. But like I said, as of right now, I believe that that's going to be a $0 change order, which means there will be no additional cost for that. But we are going to have to incorporate another manhole, a sanitary manhole, in order to avoid the 24-inch RCP in question. But like I said, at the end of the day, I believe it's going to be a $0 change order or a savings. It may not be a substantial amount of savings. It'd probably be less than $10,000 is where I think it's going to be at if it is a savings. But worst case scenario would be a $0 change order. So I don't foresee any additional cost to the project past this change order number 2.
Okay, Matt, I just have one question. If you were to give a percentage, how far along are we into this project? 90%, 80% complete? What do we look, if you had to put a number out there?
Oh, on the construction?
Yeah, on the whole thing, wrapped up, signed, sealed.
Oh, we're
and delivered.
0%. We haven't started any of the work.
Okay, but as far as
Grimmer.
the engineering.
As far as construction, as far as engineering?
Yeah,
Well, the contract for the original bid was 60 days, and then we've asked for an additional 21 days to be added because of the force main lowering work on the west side of the right of way now on 41. So all said and done, it'd be just under 3 months of work that needs to be done out there. So we will have some construction management on site and oversight for that work while it's being installed. So that's hard to throw a percentage at it without, because we haven't done any construction oversight at all. Right now, we're just working on coordination and design changes.
okay. But in dealing with
So
INDOT.
from a construction standpoint, we're at 0%. From our standpoint, it'd be really hard for me to tell you if we're at 50% or 40% of what our total cost would be. I'd hate to say that right now. I'd just be throwing from the hip.
No, that's fine. It's just, in dealing with INDOT, it sounds like our confidence level in them not throwing us, blindsiding us with another hook. It sounds like there will be other change orders that aren't your fault, not our fault. It's them, so.
Yeah, it's just been, there's been a little bit of tomfoolery on INDOT and Parsons' part as far as the coordination goes, but in the past 2 months, they've been better with the coordination and working with us. So I believe that I don't see any more roadblocks or hurdles. As far as the utility coordination goes, that on a good note, we do have all the utilities cleared within our project limits now. So that was the big hang up to this point in getting started. And that's why Grimmer had not started this work as of yet, because with the conundrum of the utility relocation going on, we had to wait for all the old existing stuff to be removed, where initially we weren't going to have to do that. And so that caused a delay in starting the job and getting things going. So now that's all been completed. The old poles have been removed. All the wires are off the old poles and everything's been cleared. So now the next step is to get this change order approved and to issue the notice to proceed for Grimmer to begin their work.
Okay.
And when I spoke with Grimmer last, they had a crew available that was going to be able to do the force main work, but we weren't ready to approve that work yet, so I couldn't authorize it. So the last status that I talked with them is that they plan to begin after the new year.
Okay, thank you.
Matt, I have, and correct my memory, if you will.
Mhm.
But on the west side, wasn't there a
Yes.
thing involved with, like an air valve on the pipe, on the fourth
Air
line?
release valve, yes.
And that was one of the problems, it was going to be covered over in this whole
Yeah.
process? If, didn't do
Yeah, because,
anything.
go ahead, sorry.
No, but it was, that was causing some of the problems. I don't know if in the absence of that valve, would there have to be this movement of any?
Yeah, because basically NDOT has designed their ditch, and that's where Craig had mentioned earlier, we were left out of the loop with their changes in their design is what I believe to be true. And because of their proposed ditch grading work that they're going to do within this area, it's causing us to not have the proper cover. And so we have to lower it, and then the air release valve would be out of the ground at that point is what my understanding. And so that has to be removed. The new air release valve has to be installed, and then the about approximately, 360, 335, so for 498 feet of existing sanitary force main will be required to be lowered because of this.
And I think to kind of dovetail kind of about, is anything else coming? But have you guys looked at this stuff about where all these lines are, and is there anything that could possibly be coming up in the future about, on this project that would involve movement of something else? Like everybody's firmed up on where stuff is going to go and things being buried and all this stuff, but I mean, is there anything else hanging out there?
I believe, like I said, I don't believe that there's any more unforeseen utility conditions to my knowledge, as I scratch my head. But I think that everything has been cleared, and as far as on the east side of 41 and the original bid, I think that we're good. And then on the west side with the force main lowering, outside of this area in question, I don't believe that there's anything else. But now I have not specifically sat down and looked at NDOT's plans outside of the project scope areas where we're involved in. So, and in doing so, I've only been sent piecemealed parts of the plans as I've requested them. And so I'm not completely 100% up to speed as to how far north or south the center turn lane work is going. I believe it's my understanding that it starts at 231 and it goes north to just north of the McDonald's. I know, Craig, maybe you have better information on that. I'm not sure if you know the project limits of that
It's rough-
100%, but I
mean,
don't.
It's various elements of the same project, but it's roughly 97th lane.
Okay.
Is the north end.
So with that being said, I don't foresee any other utility coordination or utility issues on the east side within my project limits or on the west side within my project limits. I know further to the south, my coworker Scott is working with the town on the water board with the other
water
issue.
issues, yeah.
So outside of that, I don't know of any other problems that are unforeseen to be coming, no.
Okay, thank you. And
No problem.
I think for the rest, I look at, once again, the cost. This is up to 465 with this change. And it's well over $500,000 when you toss in the cost that Haas has been going along for work on the same project. So it's flowing out very quickly, which, once again, I would hope that would give some sense of urgency with the way these projects came to us, but a sense of urgency of how are they going to be paid for? Saying, I'm not disputing whether they need to be done or whatever, but I think there's also a need that the town has to pay for them. And where's that coming from?
Well, I've been, since you requested several months ago, I've been providing you with revenue and fund information on a monthly basis.
By the way.
Sorry?
The last one you sent twice.
Okay, I was just being cautious because of the issues we were having with emails to make sure you guys got it, so.
But a question on that, since you mentioned that,
And That's the only information that I have at my disposal is what I sent you. And so in order to delve deeper into that, we would have to ask our financial advisors to get involved. And like I said, we're more than happy to bring them in next month.
No, this, on the reports, just so I can understand the reports, there's some things you get from the top here. The revenue report. It says a post date of 11/1 through 11/30.
I can't answer those questions for you. I don't
Just says
produce
it on
these.
there, that's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I don't
I'm
produce
saying what's
these.
exactly on there. And it has over here the date of 11/20.
I don't produce these reports. I would have to,
Well, apparently you don't know what's on them either.
I would have to convey to the clerk treasurer that you have
I'm
questions
trying to
about
bring
the
up a
reports.
question, and you won't let me get there.
Yeah.
I don't, so what's the problem? I'm just trying to say, how's your understanding if it goes to 11:30, but the report is printed at 11:20?
Mm-hmm.
How can these cover up to 11:30?
They don't, and I understand your question. The only thing I can do is relay to the clerk treasurer that you have questions about that. So, because I don't produce the reports, I just forward you with the
I
reports
didn't
that
say
I'm
you
given.
did. I'm saying,
Yeah, no, I'm just clarifying.
how am I supposed to be able to read this about what it's including, and is it
I
doing what it says it's doing? It says through
Yeah.
11:30.
understand your concern.
So the date run was 11/20th. From an accounting standpoint, I could see where she ran it for the period, November 1st through November 30th. It was run on the 20th, so I would assume that data is good through the 20th.
Correct. That's what I would have to.
Probably just printing the report for the month, but I'm looking at that date. That's the revenue, year-to-date revenue through November 20th.
I believe she ran the report early this past month because she wanted to take care of any necessary transfers and additional appropriations.
So then what you're
And the
saying, I should
process
look at the run date and
I'm
what it
sorry?
says the post date, and that period is pretty much irrelevant.
I
I don't know when it starts then.
Yeah. Typically, we receive those reports at the end of the month, and that
Well, this one you
run
didn't.
date is after the final post date. For whatever reason in that November report, that's not the case, and I think what Rob is saying is correct, is that you have to assume that the information that's in that report is up to that run date. It's not possible to post things, obviously, there after that run date, because she ran the report on the 20th.
Well, that was the obvious, what I was
Right.
asking about in my question. So that the title on there through the 30th, that's not really accurate.
I understand your concern, and I share that concern.
And then it's a matter,
Jeez.
if I get the next one, what do I know about the start date on the 1st? If this is going up to the 20th, those 10 days, and the next report, does that start December the 1st? And do those 10 days get lost? Or are they automatically picked up, based on the last run date?
So
But your year-to-date would get picked up.
your year-to-date would get picked up. I understand his question and his concern. I can't answer those questions. All I can do is convey to the clerk treasurer that you have those questions, or your board president can reach out to the clerk treasurer as well and ask those questions.
I'm trying to make some equivalency here, because it's saying, oh, yeah, well, we can go by the
I understand your,
dockets and relating back and this and that.
you're not the only one this month to ask the same question, just so just so we're clear. You're not the first person to ask the question of how come this was sent on the 20th and not at the end of the month. And the question about 11/1 through 11/30, it's confused a number of people,
I'll reach out to the,
including initially me. Now, I understand, since that time, as I explained, it was the clerk treasurer's intention to put the report out a little bit earlier before the end of the month so that she could handle the necessary transfers and additional appropriations needed to shore up accounts, and approvals needed through various boards and commissions and the council to be able to make those changes, and in order to have the time to prepare for those approvals. That's basically what I understand. So I believe the question was asked of her at a previous meeting. It may have been the council meeting or something like that, but I've heard the question asked before.
I'll reach out to her to get clarification on that. And then I'll let you know.
Okay, because the month to date and looking about what's going on in those revenue, or it should be more the other one, actually, the expense report, and based on our
Jeez.
docket thing. And are we talking about equivalent periods? In other words, can I go back and forth? If I can't make that equivalency,
I understand.
and how much reliance would I have on either one if I can't relate them?
I
Saying,
understand-
well,
I
you know,
understand
This
your
begets this,
concern.
and this is a takeoff on this, it should be equal, so
Yep.
forth and so on.
I agree with you and I understand your concern.
Okay. All I'm doing is voicing it. I'm not looking for an
Yep.
answer from
Yep,
you.
I know.
But I'm trying to get my understanding down, because until fairly recently, we didn't get these reports at all.
Right.
So when I was still in that kind of business, one other thing, everybody has an XYZ report, but it doesn't always mean the same thing in every place. And there's an old thing about when you assume what that means. So,
Is
I
there
don't-
any way that we can get a sanitary district only report? I mean, these have like everything in the whole town on them.
Well, I tried to pull this report apart and physically pull this report apart so that all you got was the pages that include the funds that the sanitary district and wastewater utility control. But without getting a separate report run by the clerk treasurer from Keystone for that purpose, that would have to be a request made directly to her. And I think in this case, most appropriately, it probably would have to come from the president of the board.
I'll include that with my correspondence to her.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, so then, the relocation project update, change order number 2. I'd like to entertain a motion for the approval of change order number 2 in the amount of $101,961.
also move.
I will second.
That was Ms. Sims Smearcheck, correct?
Yes. You roll call vote, Craig?
Mr. Gambala,
Yes.
Ms. Kroll,
Yes.
Mr. Setlak,
Yes?
Ms. Sims Smearcheck,
Yes,
and Mr. Kmetz.
Yes.
And you have these for signature. I think it's just Rob that needs to sign these.
All right,
Three
so no
copies.
opposition, the motion passes. Moving on to number 6, reports and correspondence. We have no reports and correspondence. We'll move on to payment of the bills. I'd like to entertain a motion for the payment of the wastewater APVs in the amount of $528,568.60.
so moved.
Second.
Greg, roll call.
Mr. Gambala,
Yes.
Ms. Kroll,
Yes.
Mr. Setlak,
Yeah, one of these I just. Actually, there's one you had mentioned, Robin, about the ballast.
The streetlight ballasts,
Was that on this one or the?
that was on this one. $348.68.
Yes, that's the only thing I questioned, because I agree with you, it should be Public Works.
And I had not heard back from the clerk treasurer on that, so I'll find out going forward.
Okay.
Those were rolled in.
As long as that's noted, the rest is fine.
Okay. Yea or nay on the vote?
Oh, yay, 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 yay.
so, I'm sorry, was a motion made?
Yes. You were on Mr. Setlak.
That was the
Roll
last one.
call.
For the approval.
There was a motion made by Mr. Setlak?
No.
No, I made the motion.
I'm sorry.
This was the roll call vote?
Oh, we're on the roll.
Roll call.
This is the roll call.
We're halfway through roll call. That's why I got tripped
Yeah.
up. Sorry.
Correct.
So that was Mr. Setlak, yes?
Yes.
Okay. Sorry. Ms. Sims Smearcheck
Yes.
and Mr. Kmetz.
Yes.
Sorry about that.
All right, and then I'd like to entertain a motion for the payment of the sanitary district APVs in the amount of $15,960.08.
So moved.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Roll call?
Mr. Gambala,
Yes.
Ms. Kroll,
Yes.
Mr. Setlak,
Yes.
Ms. Sims Smearcheck,
Yes.
Mr. Kmetz.
Yes. Move on to public comment. Do we have any public comment?
Yeah, I would like to interject, Craig, if it's possible, that not every meeting, but let's say quarterly at least, we have a representative from the clerk's office to explain to us some of the issues with these dockets and so forth, questions that both boards, the waterworks and sanitary, always have. Maybe we could, just through explanation, we can find out better why certain dates are situated when we get the reports and why certain items are charged to those dockets. And then again, with the financial situation with the waterworks and sanitary district, that I know we pay for the people to represent us with the financial situations, and that someone that represents that company come to one of our meetings, both meetings, and talk to us about the not only the budget at the end of the year or the financial report, which is 100 pages long and it's kind of hard to read, but just to answer some questions on where the finances are going to come from and so forth for some of these projects that we're also going to see in the next year because of the great growth of this town. That's just my 2 cents, my comment into that.
And you said they were coming at the next meeting in January.
I'm gonna ask them if they would attend the next meeting in January. I'll give an update.
All right, public comment. Gabe?
Hello. Apparently, the clerk treasurer is watching. She just texted to me that the dates listed on the top are automatically generated by Keystone to the report, hence why she outlined the dates actually reflected in the email. So she wants me to actually read into public comment the email. So it starts off with who's in it. I think the date was November 20th. And it goes to Robert Davis, Tammy Andurko, Fred Willman, Amy Gross, Katie Minchuk, Amanda Stevens, Steve Flores, Wayne Pondinas, Mike Schilling, Paul Pansick, Brian Blazak, Craig Phillips, Margaret Abernathy, Tyler McLeod, Gerald Sweats. November 20th, 2:05 p.m. So she wants me to also read it verbatim. So it states, one second. The end of the month reports for November 2020 are attached for your review. At the earliest opportunity, please review the appropriation report and submit your transfer request for the items highlighted in orange. Please note that the reports reflect all activity through 11/20/2020. All additional appropriations have been approved by the DLGF and are reflected in the attached reports. I wanted to get this information out to you as I will be using quite a few of my vacation days for the remainder of this year. If you have any questions about this, please feel free to reach out. Thanks, Beth.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment? All right, we'll move on to adjournment. I'd like to entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
7:36.
Roll call.
Mr. Gambala,
Yes.
Ms. Kroll,
Yes.
Mr. Setlag,
Yes?
Ms. Sims Smearcheck,
Yes.
Mr. Kmetz.